She started this journey of outreach. It was a year after her son died. She got into this work so quickly when her own trauma was still so fresh. Most people, I think, without support would never get to that point. And she took her experience and almost immediately turned it around into, okay, what can I do to help?
Right.
What can I do to help fix our community?
She never said no.
Never said no.
She was my vice chair of the Black Political Empowerment Strategy, P.A.C.T, for many years, and was the co-convener of the Greater Pittsburgh Coalition Against Violence.
In 2019, she was given her own department, and she hired me. I was the first one she hired. And we sat in her office, and she was so adamant about she wanted to be more effective. We melded right away, and we knew what our plans were. We just clicked. I almost got a college education from her on the psychology of moms and court systems because she had been an advocate for so long. She wanted to make sure that we were going out to help heal. She wanted to be sure that the resources in this building were being shared out, that nobody had to come here, that we were going to take it to them. Community work, there should be no islands. She just knocked down every wall that you could possibly knock down. If it had anything to do with healing people and helping people, she was going to do it.
She wanted to know that the work that she was doing was impactful, and it was.
And she initiated the P.A.C.T initiative, Prevent Another Crime Today, which put these big billboards up around the city of who had been killed and when, and if you knew anything about it, this is who you called, this whatever number it was.
We would get several calls every week, sometimes daily. I saw these billboards, my son was murdered, my brother was murdered. How do I get a billboard? How do I get connected? And she would never turn anybody away. She'd say, just tell them to call me, just tell them to call me. And project that helped solve crimes that had gone unsolved for years. Never making it about her, never saying, look at this big project I did. It was always, look how many crimes we were able to help solve. Look how many families we were able to help.
She had an extreme natural connection that was just there.
And she was very passionate that the families and the mothers and the kids that are impacted by crime would not be ignored.
She was all about bridging those gaps,
Right.
Connecting people to the system in underserved communities and places that have been historically oppressed by major systems. Help families make those connections, make sure they had access to the resources that they needed. And she was just so good at that.
Perfect.
From the first moment that I met her, she was just so welcoming and so kind, and she'd always be willing to step up, always be willing to help. And if she didn't know the answer, she would find somebody that would.
We have a mixture once a year that moms host with the county detectives. That would never happen without Valerie Dixon. The Alley County detectives in the DA's office, and they sit with family members from the Mon Valley, interact with each other and see each other as human, of unsolved homicides. And that would have never happened without Val.
How they are better with the public.
It's better.
Families.
Yeah.
Everything is better.
But all it took was for her to go in, bring in a team of people who she trusted and cared about, and say, let's work together.
Right. I think one of the most powerful things that we did was after the Antoine Rose incident and after several shootings. So we went into those classes for those kids that didn't have a voice. And from that, we were able to start a summit in the Woodland Hills district. And that summit now is going to, I think, 5 to 10 school districts in addition. It wasn't like work, it was like an education. It was a very good education.
Everything that she did was in service of creating pathways and creating a legacy. Nothing she did was halfway.
Because she lost her own son to violence, and her only son was 22 years old, I would see her face and I said, you're having one of those moments, aren't you? And she said, yes. Some folks, when they kill people, they don't realize that they're impacting folks for the rest of their lives. Parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the close friends, and the shooter, him or herself, will never be the same, and nor will their family. She always kept a sense of, I'm going to get through this. I always appreciated that even in the midst of facing some hard challenges, her spirit was still strong. It was still strong.
She always did everything 110%. You would hardly ever see her in the office because she was always out doing something,
Right.
you know, and
You're dealing with trauma, you're putting yourself second all the time. You're not doing what you need to do to sustain yourself. And she would just come in the building and she'd shoot back out the building and go help somebody else. Women were her priority and kids were her priority. To work with the moms that she touched and that she taught and see where they are now, that they've taken up the reins for her. To see a lot of the kids when we go into the school asking about Aunt Val.
Aunt Val, not
Aunt
Miss
Val,
Val, but
not
Aunt Val.
Aunt Val.
Yeah.
Where's Aunt Val? It was almost like she knew that she wasn't going to be present much longer, so she prepared me for things. My phone rings now like hers did.
She never knew a stranger.
Can you come to this function for my child just to be present? One of her moms called me because they didn't have AAA and needed a car tow. 3-hour calls at night some nights, and yeah, and these are things that Val did that nobody knew about. Like little things that, like she was family. She was a constant teacher, and she taught with love, and she taught with discipline, and she was just consistent in everything she did.
Aunt Val.
Right, it was Aunt Val. That's why her reputation remains what it was, and that's why people were growing under her. It's just powerful.
I can't think of a better role model.
No.
One thing that comes to mind with me is her sense of humor. It was great.
And I would always crack up because, you know, we have those trains that go by all the time. And we'd be in these big serious meetings and talk about really heavy stuff. And a train would go by and she'd go, train. So every time a train goes by, I'd say, train.